This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley and my co-host today is the delightful George McEncroe. Hi there, George.
Hello, Jo. It's a special day.
Oh, well, there is cake on the table.
There is.
And that's not a euphemism.
No.
I'm laying my cake on the table. No, there is cake on this very table here in front of us because I turn 50 tomorrow.
Goodness me.
And the lovely ladies, the Broads here, have surprised me with this extraordinary, glorious creation.
It is magnificent. It's TikTok worthy, that cake.
Oh,
That's
I'm
like
not on
something you would
TikTok.
see on TikTok. Oh, mate.
I know you are.
Mate, I know how you get so much done because you're not on TikTok. I am obsessed. Obsessed.
We'll get to that another time. Perhaps I want to learn about you and your TikTok because we're the fastest growing audience for TikTok. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Our age bracket.
Oh, God, just another thing to annoy millennials and whatever the other ones are, Gen Zs.
The Gen Xers are jumping on board TikTok at the fastest rate.
Go Gen X.
Because we've got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
But, it is my birthday tomorrow and these lovely ladies have brought me this cake which is pink and delightful and I can't wait to bury my face in it.
Yeah, it was weird the way you said I don't want any cutlery. I just want to go hands behind my back straight in. I thought, I haven't seen that side of Jo.
I'm actually going to ask one of them to come it's like we've got a huge team here. We have a very tiny core team of brilliant women who keep Broad Radio ticking along and help us grow. And one of them's going to come in, I hope, for a cameo and remove it from the table so that we don't accidentally push it off. Here's beautiful Liv. Hi,
Thanks,
Liv.
Liv.
Say hello. Thanks for taking that cake away.
That looks so good.
I can't wait. That's for 10:01 a.m. Okay, thank you, darling. Do you know what, though? It's not just about me today. Of course, I am turning 50 tomorrow and I'm enjoying that enormously. And we'll get to that as well later on. We'll talk about what it is to get through milestones as a now middle-aged person. But also joining us on the show today, we have Ruth Clare, who is an author and a speaker, and she's going to be talking about being diagnosed with ADHD later in life, which is a thing.
It's a thing. Same here. Snap. We'll just high five on that later on.
It's so interesting that it's so many women.
Yes, and so often missed. And so hard to diagnose.
Yes.
And it's basically, hit and miss. Try these. If they work, chances are you've had ADHD.
Wow.
If stimulants calm you down, chances are you've got ADHD.
It's very, very interesting and I can't wait to speak with Ruth about that. Also joining us, we have Alison Brahe Daddo, who a lot of us in our generation will remember as... Well, she was the woman I had next to my mirror on the cover of Dolly when I was 16.
Yeah, I had such a girl crush on her too. She was so pretty and that sort of fresh-faced Australian look. Not much makeup, great hair, great skin. And as I recall, having a few freckles, which made me, as the sort of Aussie bits mongrel kind of stress
That's
chest.
how we refer to it.
That's
how you come up in my phone.
But, I freckled all the time. I always was like a Bornhofen back. And then other people were just this beautiful, like caramelly skin.
Aussie Bits and Mongrel joins us today. But Ali has written a book called Queen Menopause, and it is an amazingly raw and honest account of her experience of menopause, but also really a memoir of her life. So she's going to be joining us as well. You can join us on our social media if you're watching live. Please do share your comments and thoughts along the way. Thank you so much to Etche and Donna and Kate and all the people who are already telling me happy birthday, because it is.
It's a great thing.
Look, I'm excited. I'm actually excited about turning 50. Yeah. It's a real privilege and I'm loving it. But do share your comments throughout the day as we get along in this show. And you can catch up with our episodes of Broad Radio, previous episodes, with our podcast, Broad Radio on the Go, wherever you get your podcasts. But it's not just about my birthday this week. It's, of course, Naidoc week.
Huge.
So to, bring us up to speed with how we can actually dive into this and celebrate the culture and the history and the achievements of First Nations people. It's a thrill to welcome Broad Radio co-host Shelley Ware. Hi there, Shell.
Yay, Shell.
Hi, thanks for having me, and happy Naidoc, everyone.
Darling, you are joining us from a cupboard at the Royal Children's Hospital.
Yes, I am.
It's a glamorous life that you're leading right there. Tell us what you're doing there.
So I'm having a wonderful 2 days at the Royal Children's Hospital here in Melbourne, where I'm doing a basket weaving collaboration with the children on the ward, and they are making these beautiful circles. Here's
they're
a
gorgeous.
lovely example of those, and we're going to sew them together and make a wall hanging. So we're celebrating Naidoc Week together, and it's been really special.
Oh, that's so good. And you weren't punished to be put in the cupboard there. You weren't doing anything that anyone frowned upon.
No, it's actually a really lovely room, but it does sound and look like a cupboard.
No, it's good. It's good.
It's a whiteboard teaching room.
Shell, can you give us a little summary of what Naidoc Week is all about?
Yeah, so Naidoc is Get Up, Stand Up and Show Up, the theme this year. So every year we have a theme, and, I was on a poster in 1982 and the theme was, let's talk, we've got something to say, and which is really quite relevant today as well. And it's all about celebrating the beauty of our culture. So it's attached to a theme which makes people think and really sort of digest what still needs to happen for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in Australia. But at the same time, we're really celebrating the beauty. We had the awards night, the National Awards night on Saturday night. We have flag raising ceremonies. Today is the Elders lunch that everybody's welcome, and it's all people of all nationalities are welcome to celebrate with us as well. We've got the march on Friday here in Victoria I'm talking about. So if you really want to know what's going on within your state or your area, just jump onto the Naidoc website and you can see all these amazing events that you can be a part of, and maybe you'll be lucky enough to get a little Naidoc cupcake with an Aboriginal flag or Torres Strait Islander flag, which is one of my highlights.
Everything comes back to cake.
Yeah. Look, there is
and happy birthday too.
Thanks,
yeah,
darling.
isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? Look, I think there is a lot to celebrate at the moment, and I think particularly the voice to Parliament. That a lot more non-Indigenous people are beginning to sort of look at Linda Burney and other representatives and think, wow, she's very switched on, and how this might work. Are you featuring part of this as part of the celebrations of Naidoc Week? I know it's been a long, long time coming.
It certainly has been a long time coming. So Voice to Parliament is really, really important. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, we'd love you to have a look at the Uluru Statement of the Heart website. And there are some beautiful books that you can read and share with children as well that Thomas Mayer has written. But it's really it's about time, to be fair, where we're having our Voice to Parliament, where we're able to say what we need as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, because too often we're told what we needed and it doesn't work. So if we're able to have that voice in Parliament, and hopefully everybody votes yes in an up-and-coming referendum, which hopefully won't be too long away, then we will get that voice to Parliament. We've got treaty here in Victoria where there's treaty and truth-telling, and they partner beautifully. So we need both, and we need it to happen, and we really want people to have an open heart and work together towards just creating a better future for everybody here in Australia. And a lot of that's got to do with voice, treaty and truth, which was a theme a few years ago for Naidoc. But it's all coming together, and people are opening their hearts and wanting to connect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history as their own. And that's what we want as well. We want people to understand that it's a shared history, and that we, it's not just the 200 years since Captain Cook and his merry men arrived. We've got this beautiful, rich history of 65,000 years that is yours as well. You'll have a different relationship than I will, as I did to my father, who was an initiated man, but so important that we all embrace.
Shell, I love the way you speak about it always, because it's with great generosity that you always invite every Australian to come in and have great pride of that 65,000 years. And that to me, it's something specific to you in that you're a very generous, kind person. But also I saw that in the way now we're seeing the Prime Minister when even his acceptance speech, when he took the
generosity
stage.
of it, the generosity of the
all we
Uluru
want,
Statement.
all we want now is to work together. And I think that's new because a lot of people, perhaps if they haven't understood what reconciliation is, they've seen it as perhaps there's tension or that it's about, one group taking something from another. But it's not. It's about coming together.
But I mean, it's not deniable anymore that one group did take something from another.
Absolutely.
And I think there's no contest of an idea anymore about uncededness of land. And I think that's good to have that finally put to bed. There was a very long and rich history of people living here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there sure was. And a beautiful series that's coming out that I think will be fantastic for Australians is The Australian Wars, which will be coming out in September, done by Rachel Perkins. And it's a really good understanding of what you're talking about that land being taken and the warriors that actually tried to fight it. So the first war was about keeping this country safe. And so I think, and encourage people to keep an eye out for that. But it is about everybody joining together and understanding the history of this country and knowing that we play a shared role and knowing what we can do together to heal from what has been some really horrific times for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and not shying away from that, just acknowledging it and how can we move forward together, knowing this and healing together.
Yeah, I think that treaty work done in Victoria too, to say, you can't really have justice without peace and you can't have peace without justice. So let's start with an open and honest storytelling, truth and reconciliation type conversation. And the only way from there will be forward. But you certainly can't make progress if you're still fibbing about what happened and to whom.
Yes. Yeah. And there has to be, there has to be a complete acknowledgement of the trauma, which many Aboriginal people are still carrying with them. Absolutely.
Intergenerational trauma is very real and has a huge impact on our people, a daily impact on our people. So, I'll never forget when Kevin Rudd, should I say Prime Minister Kevin Rudd at the time, he did the apology. I will never forget that outpouring of grief. And you could feel the tension leaving people from the stolen generation's shoulders and their hearts. And that's what it's all about, that acknowledgement. It helps with the healing. So, it's really important.
It's huge.
So, Shell, how can we get involved with Naidoc Week?
Well, head to the Naidoc Week website. You're also your local council. They will probably have some events on this week. Go to your state Naidoc Week webpage. There's Facebook pages. There's so much that you can get involved in. There's so much fun to be had and celebrating the beauty of this culture, and looking back at history, but also looking forward together. And, you might find a nice basket. Even at the Royal Children's Hospital today, some aunties are coming along and doing a community basket weaving while I'm working with the children. So there's certainly a lot going around, and I think even the beautiful part is a lot of organisations are doing their own private work as well, and lots of wraps have been happening and people are really embracing the beauty, and there's stuff everywhere, so make sure you get involved.
Yeah,
terrific.
I think it's up to us to make the effort to do so. It's a great invitation to really explore the beauty of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. It's the richest in the world, and it's something for us to really enjoy.
Yeah.
That's right, and it's the oldest surviving culture in the world, and it's ours. So let's see all the beautiful parts too.
Yeah, we've got lots of people saying thank you to you, Shell, saying that you are an inspiration, and thank you for your incredible voice. So thanks. Shell. Have a great Naidoc week.
Yeah, happy Naidoc week.
Yeah, happy Naidoc, everyone. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I have turned 50, if you hadn't realised, and with that has come, of course, the change.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what the change is.
What's that, darling?
It's not menopause, it's that I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? It is good. It is good. You look in your bag for a bunch of shits to give and you find they're all gone.
It's a true gift. But no, I'm being facetious. Also, in this life stage is, menopause and perimenopause, which is something that's perhaps is not spoken about as often as we would like it to be. And so I'm really pleased to welcome our next guest, who has written a very raw and honest account of her journey, because it is a journey, through menopause. But she is someone who I will admit did have on my wall next to my mirror when I was 16 years old. I'm not embarrassed to say that at all. Welcome, Alison Brahe Daddo. Hi, Ali.
Hello.
Is that weird for you? I'm sure that people say that all the time to you.
I've gotten used to it now. It has been weird. I will say that it has been weird, and I've said that before when women who I look at who are my age and are just absolutely spectacularly gorgeous, like the both of you, and go, I wanted to be you when I was younger, and I go, why?
Yeah, I wanted to rock a straw hat like you did. No, you could do things with a straw hat and a crochet white bikini, I think it was. And if I go back to my mind's eye, blue skies, beachy background, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to menopause in a minute, but I do think that we have to acknowledge that you were living what we considered to be the perfect life. But I have read your book, and it actually didn't feel like that for you.
Yeah, look, I was I know this sounds weird, but I was really unaware of my popularity at the time. I was living at home with my sisters. They kept me very grounded.
Oh, yes.
And I was not aware of, as I said, the popularity. I kind of got it when I started dating Cam, and all of a sudden we had some paparazzi people and some things pop in the newspaper. But it wasn't anything that I felt was particularly special in a lot of ways.
What about model life though? Because again, teenage girls, we were convinced at that age, probably still now, that our appearance was everything. That's how we needed to validate ourselves. And the ideal, if you could be a model, that was, in our mind, the ideal life.
The shiz.
But was model life all it was cracked up to be for you?
Look, I didn't hang with any other models. I wasn't in that model world of nightclubbing and anything like that. I still kept all my old friends. So, look, without a doubt, there's doors that get open to you if you're pretty when you're younger. It just does. That's not a conceited thing to say. It's the way the world works, and it's unfortunate because it's sort of not who you are, it's what you look like, and we still tend to put those kind of people up on pedestals. But look, I was able to, I think the greatest thing that came for me was being able to travel and have experiences at a very young age that not a lot of people get to have, and it was lucrative. It really was lucrative. So I was fortunate in that way than most people my age for sure were.
Did it mess with your head though?
Absolutely. And look, I say this as well. I went into modeling feeling really insecure. I actually, or more than anything, I sort of went into modeling not thinking a lot about how I looked or my body shape, and then it became something that I then had to think about and had to sort of judge because it was being judged constantly. So, I didn't think I was particularly fabulous or spectacular going into modeling at all.
How old were you, Alison, when you did your first shoot?
I started, 15
15
and 9 months.
Oh, 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be self-conscious anyway, like regardless of what you're doing. It's just the age for it, isn't it? Yeah. Exactly.
Someone said, show me a teenage girl who is confident in the way they look. There's not that many out there, and every sort of pimple or whatever meant so much more at that age because you're meant to be on the cover of a magazine or someone's got to cover it up with foundation and you're embarrassed about that. And so there's a whole other layer of awareness and concern that I had about what I look like that I didn't need to have. I wasn't sort of that confident kid that was able to just go, no worries, I can handle all of this. But again, I took the good with the bad, because there was a lot of good as well. But yeah, it's a very challenging place to live mentally for the years that I did, where it's just about how you look. It doesn't matter who you are as a person, what you think, what you feel. It is just about, can she sell magazines, or can she sell these clothings, and who cares what she's feeling. I remember I did one shoot. My grandfather had just passed away, and he was the most important person in my life. Like, I still is, actually. Just adored him so much. And I had to do the shoot the next day, and I struggled so much, and I was in tears between shooting. And the photographer was just like, I can't drop the F-bomb, can I? But it was
yes,
just like,
you can.
You can. You
He
can.
was just like, get the fuck over it. We need the shot.
Yeah,
Fucking
well,
hell,
yeah.
and I was an 18-year-old just devastated. And it was just, who cares? Like, we need to get this photo. I'll never forget that.
It's brutal. My daughter was approached to do some modelling. She's doing some now as a 24-year-old girl with her masters, but at 15 and 16, she was very tall, and that sort of struck people a lot, with very long curly hair. And I just said to her, look, no, because of the number of women I'd spoken to who said, my first day of modelling was the last day I enjoyed my body.
Would you
for a long time?
What if your daughter considered it?
Oh, look, my youngest has sort of tossed it around a little bit. She's 16. It's not something, as I say, for anyone who wants to go into it, I think 24 is a great age to start. If you're going to start, don't start when you're younger, in your teen years. It's too much pressure. And also, this idea that you're going to be a model, it's a hobby. I just think of it. Look, there are some models that have made it a whole career out of it from at a young age all the way to now, but they're very few and far between, and it sets you up for some challenging things, even as far as I was talking about this the other day about making money. There you are, you might make $800 in a day on a shoot, but then you've got to, when that sort of doesn't happen anymore, you've got to go back to your $12 an hour McDonald's job, and that's a real it messes with your head, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, Ali, I really enjoyed your book. I did listen to it on the Audible or whatever it's called in an airport. It got me through a long delay, and it was so interesting and very, very. You were reading it to me as well, which was
Good job. Good job.
Strangely intimate. I quite liked it.
Yeah.
But I would say,
reading it out loud, let me tell you.
I can imagine it was quite an experience and would have taken a long time as well. But one of the themes of your book is how you silenced yourself. And I think that is so relatable for women, that you go through your teens, your 20s, maybe 30s, maybe even to your 40s, not ever feeling like you can really enter your voice
Safely.
Yeah. So how has that transition been for you to actually discover your voice and sort of relieve yourself of that need to make yourself small and silent?
Yeah, and that is definitely a leftover symptom of modelling as well, because certainly they don't want to hear your voice.
Yeah.
And so that really, hammered down on that for me. And plus, I think a lot of women relate to being the nice girl, being the people pleaser. So that's been something that's been a huge part of my personality for so long. And it's still there a little bit. And I don't mind that. I've made friends with my people pleaser now. But look, it has changed, because like you were saying earlier, Jo, in turning 50, and you've just got that I don't give a shit anymore. And it's not that you don't give a shit about people or the important things to you, but it's just like, well, if they don't like what I've got to say, that's okay. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't need a perfect stranger to like me anymore because I'm going to give my opinion about how I feel, or how I feel about the environment, or how I feel about issues that are important to me. If you don't like it, that's okay, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it anymore. And I used to do that. It used to worry me all the time, So it's been hugely freeing and very exciting to be able to speak what I know and speak what I feel without all the machinations in my head.
Yeah. And look, sometimes I think there are real life consequences. I was doing a thing with Adam as well the other day, and he talked about doing that show Agony Aunts in Australia, and how easily he could find men to comment on ethical issues, but it would take months to find the women who would line up. And I just thought, wow, that's just so interesting, because so many women do pay a real price for saying something that is, supposedly controversial or even sincere. The hate that people can cop. So, I guess it's very understandable why girls become pleasers and we become appeasers, and we manage the energy of the home and placate people who are throwing tantrums and keep the peace and chop yourself to death. But whatever you do, just like, I'll go without, because I just want everyone to shut the fuck up and get in the car, and that's what we do. But I think in some other ways, if you have any sort of a social profile, there is a very real price to pay for women to speak out. And when I see women entering Parliament and stuff, I think, oh boy, you're brave,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I ran a company just delivering women and children, with women drivers, and I got death threats on the regular. And I thought, wow, there's a very thin-skinned bunch of people out there who want you to shut up.
I mean, we saw what Grace Tame received, right?
Oh my God,
and so you sort of want to empower our younger women to have a voice in the way that we didn't, but we need to also gather around them and protect them a little.
Yes, we do. We do.
Yeah, I've mentioned her a bunch, actually, because I was so horrified. She was like the absolute epitome of what people go, why can't she just smile and be nice?
Oh, yeah, man.
And I just was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? After what she's been through and the bravery of what she's willing to talk about, and you just want her to smile, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But women who want to hold men account will be in trouble. Like, if you want to hold a man account, even just by not smiling, you're shining a little bit of a spotlight on, Mr. Morrison at the time, and people lost their tiny minds over it. How dare you, little girl? How dare you?
Totally. I was classic. I think it was last year, for Australia Day, and I posted always was, always will be, will not celebrate this date on my Instagram. And I had this one fella go, oh, look, you were pretty when you were younger, but I just can't stand this rhetoric that you're now. That's what he wrote on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I'm like, bye.
It's meant to be the most cutting thing. I wouldn't even root you now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even. So there you go. Go and cry yourself a river now.
And that's the thing, that somehow you are still supposed to be, considering your worth by his assessment.
Yeah. What a devastating day. Instant dry-ons all around Australia. Because Barry, the cellar wanker, didn't like you anymore. Sorry, okay, that went a little bit far, but it's, man.
And you were worried about saying the F word, Ellie.
Well, I don't know if he just wanks in the cellar. Maybe he does it at other parts of the house. I'm not Barry. I don't know what his life is, but I don't think it's good.
So you've written this book, Queen Menopause, and I did read that you said recently in an interview, will anyone take me seriously after spending 10 years looking pretty? So obviously Barry, the cellar wanker, doesn't.
Yeah.
But
never mind.
How has it felt to share so much of yourself and now it's out in the public?
Yeah, I'm okay with it now. I wrote it, and I really was proud of everything I put in there. I was really comfortable with everything I put in there. I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of work and explored everything that I put in the book. And then it was the week leading up to when the book was about to come out, and I was having panic attacks and talking to my husband going, what have I done? Because I consider myself to be a really private person, and I've been out of the spotlight for so many years living in America. And I just thought, what have I just gone and done? I have just exposed so much of my thoughts. I've actually put real journal entries into this book for everyone to read. And he was so great. He just said, honey, just come back to the reason of why you did it. What is your why? And the why was to make sure that no one felt as lonely as I did, and that it might actually help someone out there, that I've written my story and that it's relatable. And once I sort of could take a big deep breath and come back to that, I was like, yep, it's okay. So
it
the more I talk about it, the better I feel.
That vulnerability thing of, that Brené Brown talks about. I mean, I kept thinking about that, listening to your journey and your story, and people, you just have to discredit the people who haven't had the guts to get in the arena and share what they want to say. And, people will like you, but I do like that idea that what other people think of you is none of your business. And, that has got me out of a lot of sort of spiralling anxiety. And I don't trust anyone who hasn't been in therapy, by the way. Yeah. So, good work, you, because that is key. That is key.
Yes. And so to get to the menopause part of it, though, I mean, you list this incredibly long list of experiences you went through, which it was to me, I was like, a lot of the experiences I went through I hadn't put down to necessarily being menopausal or perimenopausal. Like you spoke about anxiety and depression and really the mental toll of it. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, and I think for the feedback that I've gotten the most is actually that side of it, because as women, we are often just labeled nuts and crazy and oh, you must be having your period, or oh, she's just a menopausal woman, that's why she's gone nuts, and all this kind of bullshit. So that took my legs right out from under me, that feeling, that mental toll. And I think that out of everything should really be spoken about and highlighted and made to feel where you're made to feel normal about that. And because it was very unexpected, and it was the hardest part by far for me with that. Like I could, the hot flushes were really hard and the weight gain was crap and all of that stuff, but I never expected to be having thoughts the way I did.
Yeah, it hits you very, very hard. And I think people don't have a full understanding of how those hormones interact with our mood, how estrogen affects, how prostaglandins interact, and how testosterone, and you do feel like you're going kind of crazy.
Well, and also partly because you're dismissed.
Oh, you're dismissed, trivialised, minimised, and you even do that a bit yourself. You're sort of thinking, well, I don't know whether I'm about to get my period, but that feeling when you've wanted to bash your shopping cart trolley into the heels of the person in front of you for no reason, and then the next day you get your period and you go, oh, that's why I was having a psychotic rage over someone just walking too slowly. It wasn't personal. But then when you start missing your period and you kind of don't know where you are in relation to the universe and your own body, it does start you gaslighting yourself a little bit too, thinking, well, maybe I am just going bonkers, and after all this time it's finally happened.
That's right. And everything that comes with the whole changing of your body and the fact that you're no longer, like I write about that in the book, that I was so shocked at how sad I felt about not being actually able to have children anymore. I didn't want to have any more children. But I remember just that feeling of going, oh my gosh, that whole part of my life is over. That whole part of being able to have a child if I wanted one is over. And it's not by my choice. It's been taken from me. And that felt really crushing. And I shed tears about that, which I kind of felt at the same time, this is nuts. I don't want to have kids. And my husband said, honey, we didn't want to have any more kids. I'm like, I know, but it really, there's something about that was just really alarming and really mournful for me.
Do you think it's because I actually and I have had infertility experiences for a long time. So for me, it wasn't about the fact that because I had to reconcile with not having any more kids long before menopause. But for me, it was the notion that I had lost that relevance because society only values not just youth, but beauty. I think that sort of, that you have that kind of, people assume that you're now sexless. You're now actually,
fecundity of like the autumnal,
so I felt like people would just start overlooking me because I don't have the fertility of being young anymore.
Yeah. I remember one of the first pictures that came up when I was Googling menopause, when I very first started writing the book, and it was this cartoon drawing of this lady, and it had like all the arrows of what happens to you when you're get your menopause, and it was like this little old bag lady in this tartan skirt with big fat legs and a big fat tummy, and it's like your hair goes grey, and I was like, this is the image we're being given when you reach menopause. Like, no wonder no one wants to know about it. No one wants to talk about it because it's like, and again, it like this idea of the crone as well, which that the idea of the crone doesn't look like J-Lo. It's not. It looks, the idea of the crone that in history is a wizened little old lady, and this is meant to be our crone years as well. Because we're no longer fertile. So.
And with that, free to speak and free to shag. And I think it's really interesting the way patriarchal constructs of women who aren't at risk of pregnancy anymore are sort of diminished, because these women can make choices in their own sexual interests without any consequences, kind of like all the dudes have done forever. So not only are women at this age, usually have some money, they're not going to get pregnant, and they looked in their bag for any fucks to give, and there were none there. And
it's the second time you've said that today. It's actually that's
true.
The theme of the show.
True. Yeah.
When you talk about menopause, you got to do a few F-bombs in there. It's very necessary.
And Ali, someone else has just mentioned Etche. She's it's my favourite thing about menopause that I'll bring up all the time is the chin hair, which is like, I just find myself fondling my chin hair all the time, and I really have become quite fond of them.
I hate that I pluck them in my, like, once I over plucked them and they've never grown back my eyebrows, but these chin hair bastards can't never miss a beat.
And there was another thing that you said that I need to bring up when you're talking about wanting to ram the shopping trolley into the back of someone in front of you. But you said when you were listing the surprising changes in you, why does my husband's chewing make me run from the room? And I have to tell you, my husband's chewing, I've considered putting a fork through his eyeball because I can't stand the sound of it. And I said to Daz, honey, you've got something in common with Cameron Daddo.
And he got all excited. He said, your mastication is disgusting. Oh, man.
That's so good.
Oh, I love it.
When he read the book, because he only read the book like not that long ago, probably about a couple of months ago. I was giving him tiny little bits and pieces, but he read it from cover to cover a couple of months ago. First of all, he said, did you write this book just for me? Because there was so much that he understood about me. But then now he goes, is my chewing really annoying you now? So now he's really aware. Is it annoying now? Is it annoying now? And I'm like, yeah, actually it is. Actually it is. He's like, oh. So he's really aware of his chewing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think it's great. Look, I don't have a partner, but I do have sons that tap constantly, and it makes me want to bend their fingers back until they break. But apparently that's not allowed either.
Oh, Ellie, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been just a delight, and I really loved the book. So congratulations on that. It's a really, well done. It's beautiful, and you're doing great things. You're living a magnificent life post menopause.
There's a lot of good stuff about postmenopause. A lot of good life to live, that's for sure.
Yeah,
there is the poster girl for post the pause. Love it.
It is. Thanks, Ellie. You have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Whenever we're apart, we miss each other so much. So, please accept this daily dog as a sign of my love for you.
Broad Radio, talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Oh, we have so many people on our socials saying, I just relate so much to all of that. It's the dry skin, people with bowls scraping noises, not into that either. Like
Scraping the breakfast bowl. It's irritating as hell. Get out.
It's a very relatable thing that we're all going through, and this particular conversation I think is equally relatable because it seems to me a lot of people are being diagnosed with ADHD in adult life, and so many of those are women. So someone who has recently been empowered by a new understanding of her beautiful brain is author and speaker, and full disclosure, dear friend of mine, Ruth Clare. Hi there, darling.
Hello, how are you?
It's great to, Alison Brahe Daddo is perhaps one of my new best friends, but you're one of my old and dear friends, Ruth.
Well, I just listened to her interview and I feel she is now one of my best friends too. So that's how we can all get together. It's all right.
She's pretty grouse. She's a grouse chick.
She is. So, darling, you've done a lot of things in your life. You've written this incredible memoir called Enemy, which I recommend. It's just incredibly raw and beautiful. You've got a TEDx talk that's just so interesting, and I want people to go along and see that. But right now we're talking to you about the fact that you've just discovered that you are a neurodivergent brain owner. That's how you want to describe it. How did this happen?
ADHD is very genetic, and what happened was, often happens with women, is that if your diagnosis has been overlooked as a child, when you become a mother, one of your children may present with ADHD symptoms, and that's what happened for my son. And so we were in the process of getting, you try lots of things. I tried lots of naturopaths and kinesiologists, and let's try and meditate, and all of the things that you do. Because I had no idea what even ADHD was really. I had some stereotypes related to red cordial and Bart Simpson, and that was pretty much my knowledge. And then, we came home with this whole lot of forms to fill out. Sort of, you do this thing, and then you're meant to, you go to the pediatrician, you get all these forms to fill out. And then when we got to the one that was related to ADHD, I was like, what is this cluster of things? Because they seem to me so unrelated. Like there's two different types of ADHD. There's the hyperactive impulsive type, and then there's the inattentive type. And hyperactive impulsive type often presents in boys. They might have just pure hyperactive impulsive type. And it's the things like fidgeting and can't stay in your seat and, interrupting and talking loudly and, all those impulse control issues. And then the inattentive type, a lot of women have just purely inattentive type, and that looks completely different. And inattentive type ADHD is that you forget where you put your things, and you forget appointments, and you're kind of tune in and out of conversations. And I have had this entire history. I grew up in a home with family violence, and so I had this whole narrative about what my life was. Everything that I thought all of these, leftover really annoying personality traits of mine were just, that's my trauma, So the fact that I cannot remember where my phone is at any moment in time.
Yeah, so trauma and ADHD are often confused, and people who have complex PTSD have it.
And there's so many comorbid, overlaps between lots of different conditions. So it's not like you go, oh, that's clearly this and that's clearly that. But when I sort of went, oh my God, if I could have an actual excuse for why I lose my things all the time, I could write this whole new concept of myself, because it annoys everyone. I understand my husband, who is like well, you just take your items and you put them where they belong, and then they have a space.
How do you know where the space is? How do I know where the place is for those things? It's very
But even
hard.
if you decide the place, I have to say to him, so my experience of items, and now I understand about working memory, and that, you know, you've got limited working memory, and my psychiatrist has described it, you know, that and also the emotional dysregulation. So I am just an emotional train wreck. Like, everything impacts me. I'm very deeply, my children always just kind of sneakily, anytime there's like a dog on basically television doing anything cute, I'm like weeping with love for that dog. I love them. And, you know, and so they're just kind of like always just going, oh yeah, she's going to go for this one. I'm like, I do. They all make me cry. And so there's this hyper emotional aspect, which for me has been one of the most dysregulating parts. And the fact that what hyperactivity looks like is not necessarily physical hyperactivity. It's, you know, this me talking like this all the time, you know, that, you know, I have 100 different ideas and I go off on tangents, and someone will say something and it's like reminds me of something. I have to interrupt them and tell them the thing about the thing, and that's why it's funny. And I'm sorry, I've interrupted you. Sorry. So I'm listening now.
Do you see why I love her? We have a very good time.
I can totally see. Did you find with the medication, so my psych who referred me finally said, look, I think this could help. Let's try you on, I call them my Dexy's Midnight Runners, the dexamphetamine. If you feel better, you should, like, you will know that this is an effective solution for you within a very short period of time. And for me, it was like I'd been standing in a pantry with a globe that had blown, and turning on the light, and I could suddenly see where everything was and where it all needed to be, and I'd been stumbling around. It was so quick, and it was like my anxiety dropped from sort of like a 9 out of 10 to a 1, you know, depression from sort of a 7 to about a 1. And I just thought, oh my God, I wish because, you know, I'd had a lot of trauma in my childhood as well, and you know, stuff like that. And I thought, oh, this is probably trauma related. And also I thought my thinking had been really interrupted by having 4,000 children under the age of 5. Well, 4 under 5. I tend to exaggerate, but
you know, 4,000. When you've got 4, you get to multiply by 1,000. That's right.
But they interrupt your thinking all the time as well. So I could never really figure, you know, you can't finish a sentence or your cup of tea or a piece of toast or the book or anything that you're trying to concentrate on for a long period of time. But the medication worked very quickly for me, and I don't know if you found that was a solution for you as well, Ruth.
Yes, but can I just go back? You just said something that I wanted to say something about, so I will get to the answering what you're saying. What you said previously about the wanting to ram the trolley into people.
Yes,
your previous
rage. Yep.
So for me, that has been one of the biggest challenges of my life, is that I am such an impatient person. I now understand, you know, my dad was really impatient, and that spilled over for him into violence with us. Like, he had just 0 to 1,000. And so I have spent a huge amount of emotional energy just trying to be less like that, to, you know, calm and, you know, do some meditation. Remember to do the meditation. Then, you know, you're in the meditation and meditation.
Yeah, remember to remember. Yeah.
But that you know, it's like really, of all the qualities that I think makes for shit parenting, being impatient. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so. And I, you know, I'm like, but I'm having to any time that I am being patient is pretend. Like, yes. It is. I'm not, like, it's always. I'm just going, oh my God, if you don't hurry up, get out the house, get the. I'll kill you.
Yeah,
and I'm just saying,
forcing
time.
Yeah.
I literally learnt scripts. Take your time.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I did those
too. Matter if we're 10 minutes late. Take
slow.
But so that's a really interesting thing, Ruth, and I know that actually your TEDx talk, which is called "The Pain of Hiding Your True Self," right, which is beautiful. Do check it out and watch it. So the fact that you now have this diagnosis, has that allowed you to go, well, I'm going to stop running that script now, and I'm going to allow myself to be me?
Well, what it has allowed me to do is, you know, there's so much power for me in, you know, as I'm a writer and I make sense of the world through writing, and so words are really important to me, and finding that I have this experience with writing where I actually feel it like almost a bell chime in my, cells when it's like, that's the right thing. That's the right words to say. And it's like, I've spent so long in therapy, but this huge part of the puzzle was missing. And it's not like it necessarily changes, it's like, that mindfulness practice where you have your thoughts and you're meant to be saying, I'm watching the thoughts, here is the thought. When you don't know, all what I used to do previously was go, stop being so impatient. God, you're just like your father. And oh my God, okay, calm down. Whereas now I have a name for it. Now I can say, okay, this is a struggle for you. This is an ADHD thing. And it just having that knowledge that it is a part of my neuronal wiring, and I'm always going to have a struggle with that it's just part of the way I am. It's like it gives me that one step removed. And it's the same as with, finding out there's this aspect to ADHD called rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is, oh my God, for me, the most, I am so certain that everybody, like I spent my entire life thinking everybody hates me. That's my basic foundational, and I just look for evidence of that. And the tiniest whisper of the smallest glimpse from 600 kilometers away, I'm like going, and I'll never bother you again with my disgusting presence. Goodbye, sir. That's like, and I will, that's it, and it means it's hard to put work out there. Any tiny criticism, you're like, oh my God, and it just takes me to this really deep hole. Whereas now that I have the name rejection sensitive dysphoria in my head, I can go, perhaps that is the rejection sensitive dysphoria, and maybe everybody doesn't despise you. And just having that, and I don't know, I find that it just gives me a perspective on myself that I never had before.
Yeah.
And sorry, can I just go one? Yes. I know I'm talking too much.
No, it's all right, Tom.
Back
Sorry.
to the medication. I have found that it has just quietened down some of, which you, given how much
chatter.
I'm talking,
the inner chatter.
Chatter.
Yeah. I just wanted to raise a very important question that one of our listeners has shared with us, and it actually is something that sort of popped into my head during the week as well, Ruth, because I'm a Collingwood supporter. Don't hate me for it. I was born that way. But Jordan De Goey recently, in an apology that he gave for some recent behaviours that he seems to be returning to repeatedly.
A footballer behaving badly, I won't have it. I'm out of this studio. I don't buy it.
He acknowledged that he's learned that he has ADHD. He says it's not an excuse, but I have ADHD, right? And now one of our listeners, Pen, has said, my sister-in-law had to give her brother an undertaking to not commit domestic violence against him and his son. Now she says she has ADHD. Is ADHD also used as an excuse by people for really bad behaviour? And I just wonder what your perspective on that is, because
No.
I don't know.
I don't think
what
it
even the
is.
answer to that question
Well,
is.
I think it's a real, I actually, because I do know you're a Collingwood supporter, Jo, I saw that and go, oh my God, she's so up about this. And so I was like, who is this person? Collingwood, football. Yes, I will know things. And what I think is really interesting is, autism and ADHD are both neurodivergences. But the way that autism is understood and thought about in society and the way that ADHD is thought about and understood in society are very different, because the outward manifestations of this thing that is invisible, that you're basically having to trust people that is going on inside their head. We don't like that as a society. We're happy, a physical disability. Yes, I can see that you do not have a leg. And so therefore slack will be cut, or I will try and reframe a thinking on that. And, a physical disability is something that's much more able to be understood. And a lot, I've looked at ADHD, and a lot of the way that, if you interrupt people, you have a tendency to be late, you forget things, whatever. People don't like any of those things. Like that, and actually, a lot of the things you can see why it has a lot of negative perception. But one of the things I thought was interesting about that incident is, there is definite impulsive. Like I have got I'm a very impulsive person, which I think is what makes me very fun.
100%.
But, you know, into, you know, lots
But
of
you are
trouble.
fun. You are fun.
Person, because you always want to have that one more drink and do that thing, and, you know, but, you know, you bring kind of to your impulses the person that you are underneath. And if you also have underlying issues with women and you're being disrespectful to the women, I've never had the impulse to, you know, randomly pull someone's top down in a bar.
And look, and I've taught a lot of kids with ADHD, and they've never seen in boys or girls any sort of inclination to behave badly. So I think if somebody's turning up to your house and committing family violence, I think that's probably not part of the excuse. But yeah,
I agree. But that idea of you know, making excuses for yourself, it's a really I've found it really difficult, because I having grown up with a really strict father and wanting to prove him wrong, is just going, I will be the best, most perfect human being possible. I will work on myself until I overcome all of that stuff. You know, it has been an absolute drive of mine, and it makes me really, really, really hard on myself. And finding out that I have ADHD has just allowed me to have a little bit of compassion where before I didn't. And, you know, I totally understand what people are saying, that, you know, you don't want to have this thing where you make excuses for yourself. But that just sort of feeds into the narrative that, you know, I'm not good enough as I am, and I should be able to do it as well as everybody else without any extra effort. And that, you know, I guess there's a lot of energy that goes into trying to reach a neurotypical standard when your brain is not wired that way. And I guess that there's somewhere between making excuses for yourself and having some compassion. And I just hope that there's a ground we can reach between those two concepts.
I think that's exactly right.
Going, you know, the way that if you do not have a neurodivergence, sort of going, well, I can do it. Why can't they? It's like, well, because it's a really lot harder. Like, I don't know why. That's just the brain, mate. Like, ask the brain. I didn't do it. You know, it's like...
Yeah. Look, it is really one of those tricky things. And I think, you know, you don't want to be saying, I mean, I guess I always come at this from a family violence perspective as well. And I see the way in which depression has been used as a reason for alcohol abuse or family violence, or, you know, hurting people that you're meant to love and protect, and pursuing them and terrifying them. And I think that's what I'm sort of, you know, always keen to say, well, if you've got the diagnosis and you've got the support, you know, that's great. You're halfway there. But you're right. I mean, I think people have to be really honest with themselves and say, you don't also want to say, just because I have this neurodivergence, I'm more prone to being violent, because then that can lead to all sorts of discriminatory issues with people in the workplace or other things. You know, we don't want to hire them because they're ADHD and they might end up doing a wicked thing, you know, or what society considers wicked.
Ruth, I would like to say to you, though, that you are absolutely perfect as you are. And I have greatly benefited from every element of your personality, let me say, over the years, and your brilliant brain. And so I'm so pleased that what you've come to is self-compassion, because that's the thing I wish I could gift to every single person I know in my life. So I'm very pleased that you found that place.
Yeah, you're gorgeous. You absolutely are.
And so just finally, because we know so many people are sort of perhaps going down this path, what actually is do you have some advice for people who are now, because there's so much conversation about this, actually going, maybe this might be a piece of my puzzle that I can reach? What advice can you give?
There are a lot of really great online communities, like via Facebook and whatever, that are, you know, and one of the things that has been so amazing for me, and I don't know if you've had this as well, if you're in those communities, but you're suddenly talking to all these people who overshare, blah, blah, I can't find anything, and you're having a laugh about something that previously you felt, I felt that was a thing I was having to hide all the time, about how chaotic I felt inside. And suddenly you feel, I'm like completely normal. within this group of people who have the same brain as me. Like, that's completely normal. But they also really, everyone is so generous in that community. And, you know, they'll say, I think I might have this. Ask all those questions. There's so many different groups online, and you can find ones geographically specific if you wanting recommendations for specific things, because there are enormous amounts of wait time. So you basically trying to find out where you can see someone when you're often waiting like a year between when you think you have you need a diagnosis and actually getting in, so starting with those online, groups of people who've gone through the same journey as you, I reckon is the absolute bomb of a starting point. And then you can read through everything that everyone's written before and go down the wormhole, because that's one of the ADHD specialties.
It is. Welcome to my wormhole. I've lined it especially with former news clippings. Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Ruth. And I will say again, please read Ruth's book, Enemy. It's amazing. Check out the TEDx talk. It's a beautiful, beautiful 12, 15 minutes to 17 minutes to share with her. I can't remember how long it is, Dol, but you'd know.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's had a parent in the military would be good as well. Like if you've had a parent who's gone through war, it is really, really interesting. I think it gives you a new insight into Vietnam War.
My main, it's written from a child perspective, because I don't think children are included anywhere near enough in the conversation about family violence. And so that book is specifically written, and it's, I have two parts, and part of it is understanding the war aspect, but really it is the child experience. And, I deliberately separated out. I didn't want to have any adult reflections on my child experience. So my child is age progressing, and what it meant for me, for my dad to treat me that way, and the understanding I had when I was really young. So if you've had that experience, it really is about trying to speak to your child.
And and there's a lovely compassion that comes towards your father, and I think that's really, hard for people to come from a position of being terrified to being loving and understanding. So,
yeah. Thanks, darling. I will see you again soon. It's now 10:02, so Ruth's wrapped up the show for us in the most perfect way.
She's pretty amazing.
Oh, she is. As are you. Thanks for joining us on this show today.
As are you, Jo Stanley. Don't look a day over 25.
That is.
Get out of here with your 50. Get out.
Well, someone just said to me, it's your last day of being in your 40s. I'm like, don't put it that way. It is the eve of my new becoming.
Yeah, and look, it's better than the alternative, as people say.
Absolutely. It's a great privilege. So I'm really blessed. And I say thank you to everybody for your beautiful birthday wishes. And next week I will see you when I'm 50 and a week old.
Yay.
See you then.